constant innovation, unparalleled education, groundbreaking global business education you'll find only at Oxford College of Business. That's because all we do, all we are, is business education.
Of how the restructuring efforts are going and these efforts to find a partner.
The restructuring efforts are ongoing at the moment. We've submitted a plan to the government and we're waiting for approval. Obviously, this is peak time. July, August is the busiest time of the year in the airline world, as you know. Not a good time to disrupt anything. So we are going to go through the summit, make some money, and as the low period approaches, begin our restructuring. The privatization plans are in the hands of the government, who is the majority shareholder, and that is being pursued by a council of ministers. So the airline itself is not actually involved in that.
So that's the time frame, I guess. What is it likely to look like?
Nothing particularly drastic. The fleet rationalization has pretty much happened already. We might lose one or two more aircraft. There are people interested in taking them. The routes have shrunk, as you know. We've pulled out of most of Europe. London's the only one left. We're still expanding quite significantly into India and also Australia. Starting October 29th, we launched non-stop services to Melbourne, which I think will be a huge boost for the traffic between Australia and Sri Lanka, which have been growing year on year quite strongly. So it's not all doom and gloom. There's still hope out there. It's just trying to rejig the business and pivot to a more regional focused network rather than the more ambitious European trade that we were in for so long.
I'm glad you identified that, Suren. Now, I just want to really get to grips because you're in a bit of a pickle, aren't you? And I think you're identifying a regional network. It's because, I mean, you've got Gulf carriers to your west, you've got these Asian carriers to your east. You're 3 to 5 hours away from most of these major hubs in the west and the east, as I mentioned, which makes you then the target of LCCs, low-cost carriers. So what will Sri Lankan Airlines look like, in your view, let's say in 2 years' time, when the restructuring is complete?
If you draw a 1,000-mile ring around Colombo, you'll find that that encompasses everything from Hyderabad down to the Maldives. And that is really our natural market. There's 300 million people there. And there's plenty of traffic to support an airline of our size or even something much larger. It's just a matter of rejigging ourselves to be able to cater to that market. And our Australian initiative is part of this. It's very strong traffic between Australia and the subcontinent, which is our natural home. So even though we are SriLankan Airlines, the national carrier of Sri Lanka, and very proud of being that, we are essentially a South Asian airline catering to our market. And I think there's plenty of room in there for growth.
Are you catering very, yes or no, primarily to the Sri Lankan diaspora?
No, only about 30 to 35% of our traffic is what we call VFR traffic between Sri Lanka and other parts of the world. Most of our traffic is network traffic and also tourist inbound to Sri Lanka, the leisure market. So we are not primarily a diaspora carrier.
Absolutely. That's what I wanted to get out of the way, because then I want to just talk about the restructuring and how the airline will look. We didn't really get a feel of that from what you said, because you've got a lot, for instance, you've got ground handling services, you've got a lot of fat you've got to cut, haven't you? Shouldn't you be splitting various businesses off here and actually also right-sizing them?
Arguably, yes, but if you look at the significant competitors, the Gulf carriers among them, they are a group business, and the group has cross-subsidizes parts of it. At air transport level, making a profit in our region is going to be very difficult in the short term. However, at group level, with ground handling and catering and the engineering business, we are in a position to become profitable this year once the restructuring goes through.
Will finding a partner be able to help with the productivity side, and how close are you to finding a partner?
There's been a few overtures. The government is currently talking to some possible partners. It's a bit of a fine balance between finding one with the capital and one who's not a competitor. So it's not the easiest of tasks. But we do have significant air service agreements that cater to a lot of growth. Our lack of capital is what really constrains us.
Fleet modernisation is another issue. How does that endeavour really fit in with the process of creating a leaner, more cost-effective, more focused business?
Our fleet average age is just over 7 years, so we don't have an old fleet by any means.
Would you shed some of the older?
Yes, we are giving back 3 of the older narrow bodies in 2018. We are introducing 3 replacement 320neos coming in, one's due for delivery this week, and there's 2 more due towards the end of the year. So those numbers are stable for now. Expansion is on the cards. I need more aircraft. Unfortunately, capital is a problem. The government is obviously not in a position to pump capital into the airline.
Of course, Emirates used to be your partner. They walked away a few years ago. Would you look for a similar sort of deal with a Gulf carrier, maybe even a Japanese partner? That's been touted too.
That's been touted as well, but as I mentioned earlier, the partnership search is in the hands of the government, the primary shareholder. My job is to run the company day to day.
Has there been an overture, one of the overtures you spoke about, has that been from a Japanese carrier?
There's been talk of involvement of Japanese carriers, but I believe the initial push came from a group of Sri Lankan investors.
What do you see as being the major risks for the airline?
The major risk for the airline is our inability to cash in on what is essentially a captive market.
Is it if the restructuring issue and the role of, or how long the government takes longer than anticipated?
The government does tend to move slowly, you're right. Then this is a fast-moving business, as you know. If we don't act very quickly, I'd say in the next 6 months we need to get this thing sorted. We're going to be left behind as more and more capacity is added to the market and we lose market share.
Yep, Suren, the government can't surely be keeping you in the dark about its plans, as you're alluding to almost. You must have a rough timeline as to when you're going to IPO. Come on, for God's sake, man.
Well, the Sri Lankan government works in mysterious ways, shall we say, and it's sometimes best left alone. I do have a small management team. We are maxed out trying to do what needs to be done in the short term to keep the airline going. And I have to say the last couple of months have been very good. We've beaten our revenue forecast every month of the financial year. So things are turning around. We just got our big problem is the cost base. We have to reduce the cost base. If we can do that, we'll be profitable this year.